The haunting photos show an excited Sade Robinson arriving at the Twisted Fisherman in the Menominee Valley April 1st, meeting Maxwell Anderson for a first date. The pair are seen sitting at the bar eating and later leaving together. It's the last image of her alive before she was reported missing.
Welcome back, and thanks for being here. When you go out on a first date, you expect to have a good time, to connect with that person, and hopefully see them again. Many times, however, that date is with a complete stranger. And if you find yourself in a situation where you're alone with them, it can not only be dangerous, but sometimes deadly. Sade Robinson was born on May 10, 2004. To her mother, Sheena Scarborough, and her father, Carlos Robinson. She was born in Mississippi, but had lived in Milwaukee since she was only 2 years old. While Sade's father lived in Florida and her mother in Milwaukee, she had split her time between the two as she was growing up. But by late 2019, she had moved back to Milwaukee to live with her mother. Sade was said to be kind, outgoing, happy, independent, and confident. Additionally, she loved to dance, rap, and her favorite color was pink. In middle school, Sade had been part of the Junior Reserve Officers Training Corps, and she dreamed of joining the U.S. Air Force one day. She had attended Riverside High School, where she had a lot of friends and got good grades, even graduating a semester early. After high school, Sade had enrolled herself in Milwaukee Area Technical College, so she could pursue a career in criminal justice. She was also working 2 different jobs so that she could afford her own apartment. Sade worked at the Wisconsin Country Club, as well as Pizza Shuttle, that was located on Milwaukee's east side. At the pizza place, she usually worked the counter and was said to be loved by her co-workers and customers alike. But then, on April 2nd, 2024, Sade Robinson didn't show up for her scheduled shift at Pizza Shuttle. This was not like her at all. She was a great worker, and her manager couldn't even remember the last time she hadn't showed up for a shift. Her coworkers were immediately worried and tried to contact her throughout the day, but with no success. One of Sade's friends had also tried to call her a few times that day. But when she had not returned any of those calls, and the friend learned that she didn't show up for work, she called the police to see if they could go over to Sade's apartment to do a welfare check on her. Come to find out, the previous night on April 1st, Sade was supposed to be going on a first date with a 33-year-old man named Maxwell Anderson. The pair had been set to meet at a local seafood restaurant. Sade was very excited for this date, and she even told one of her friends how much she was looking forward to it. Sade had texted Maxwell prior to meeting him, and she told him that she was feeling seafood. A little while later, she left her apartment to go meet him at a seafood restaurant called Twisted Fisherman, a restaurant that Maxwell had actually previously worked at. After they ate dinner, the pair had gone over to Duke's on Water, which was a Milwaukee bar. While there, Sade would send her friend a Snapchat message. And that would be the last time that anybody would hear from her. The following morning, before anyone realized that Sade was missing, one of her friends had seen on her Life 360 app that Sade's phone had traveled from the seafood restaurant to a nearby sports bar, then to Maxwell's house. From there, it had traveled to Warnemont Park in Cudahy, Wisconsin. Earlier that same morning, April 2nd, Sade's vehicle had been discovered. Her 2020 Honda Civic sustained extreme fire damage and had completely ruined the interior. However, police were still able to recover from the trunk the outfit that Sade had been wearing the night prior on her date with Maxwell. They also found an iPhone that they believe belonged to Sade. Later that day, police were called to the scene of a gruesome discovery. A human leg had been found on the beach in Warnemont Park, and it appeared it had been sawed off at the hip. It was determined that the leg belonged to a black woman who was approximately 5 feet tall. And later on, using DNA evidence, they were able to determine that it did indeed belong to Sade. Based on surveillance video and Sade's cell phone tracking, Police determined that at 6:30 p.m., she and Maxwell had left the restaurant, then headed to the bar. They had arrived at Duke's on Water in Sade's car after that. While they were there, Sade had sent a Snapchat message to one of her friends. At 9:06 p.m., Sade and Maxwell were seen leaving the bar. Then, at 9:24 p.m., Sade's phone had pinged in the area where Maxwell's house was located, which was on South 39th Street. Surveillance footage would show two people arriving at the home that night. So at that point, Sade was still alive. And it wouldn't be until 12:48 a.m. that Sade's phone was tracked leaving Maxwell's house. It had then traveled through downtown Milwaukee and in the direction of her apartment, before then continuing north. At 1:33 a.m., her phone had traveled to Pleasant Valley Park along the Milwaukee River. Then at 2, her phone had left that area and headed towards Warnemont Park, arriving at 2:45 a.m. Her car was again picked up on surveillance at 2:53 a.m., still headed in the direction of Warnemont Park. 9 minutes after that, cameras capture a figure descending the bluff down to beach level. Nearly an hour and a half after that, the vehicle leaves the Warnemont Park area. Minutes after, Maxwell's cell phone lost battery. So clearly at this point, Maxwell was police's main suspect. And on April 4th, they executed a search warrant for his home. And in this home, police would end up making some horrifying discoveries. They would find blood on bedding as well as on walls that led to the basement. They also found a knife in the kitchen sink, an axe hanging on the living room wall, a mop in the bathtub, and women's clothing hidden underneath a tool bench in the basement. More women's clothing was found in the garage, and still even more were hidden between basement support beams and the home's block foundation. This included a bra and underwear. There were even more found in a trash can. And the ID of another woman altogether was also found. Several gas containers were additionally located in the garage and storage area. After discovering all of this evidence, police pulled Maxwell over at a traffic stop only a few blocks away from his home. He was then placed under arrest and brought in for questioning. At the same time, a hoodie was found inside his car that matched the one the suspect who had torched Sade's car had been seen wearing. And in that car, they would later find, right in plain sight, blood on the front passenger door speaker. On April 6th, investigators canvassed the area where Sade's car had been set on fire, and there they would find more of her remains. This included a human foot that matched the one found in Cudahy. Other pieces of human flesh were also found in this area. Two witnesses who had spoken with police said that around 7:30 a.m. on April 2nd, they had seen a white man toss a lighter into a Honda Civic, then just walk away. And in surveillance video, police saw someone who looked to be Maxwell walking on Lisbon Ave. And in this video, you can see the car burning in the background. Investigators also found a video of Maxwell getting on the bus at 8:12 a.m. on April 2nd. This bus was headed southbound on 35th Street, and on the bus's video surveillance, you can see Maxwell wearing the same hoodie that he had been wearing when witnesses had seen him setting Sade's car on fire. The bus footage then shows him arriving at his house and getting off at 8:43 a.m. Maxwell's phone had also reportedly been off its network until 9:30 a.m. on April 2nd. Which coincided with the timeline authorities reconstructed for his potential path from the scene back to his house. When mapping a route from the site of the vehicle on Lisbon Ave to Maxwell's house, police determined that on foot it would take just under 2 hours, which aligned with their timeline of events. Maxwell Anderson was charged with first-degree intentional homicide, mutilating a corpse, and arson of property other than a building. He remains in custody on a $5 million bail and is due to stand trial in December of 2024. Maxwell had a short criminal history, but he carried some serious charges. In 2015, he had been found guilty of domestic abuse, intimidating a witness, and criminal damage to property. In 2019, he was found guilty of his second offense of driving while under the influence. And most recently, in 2022, Maxwell was found guilty of driving with a suspended license. On April 18th, more than 2 weeks after Sade's murder, more human remains, including a torso that was believed to belong to her, were found on a beach along Lake Michigan.
More body parts were found early Thursday morning when someone walking along a beach in South Milwaukee discovered Robinson's torso and arm had washed ashore. Angela Buchanan lives nearby.
I mean, I can't imagine what Sade's family is going through. Nobody will ever be able to understand that. You can't ever relate to that. But just knowing that this happened so close to home is such a hard thing. I do hope that they're able to find the rest of her remains, just so that the family can have a proper burial for her and they can have some closure.
Since her murder, Sade's family has loudly vocalized their criticism of law enforcement's investigation into this case. Among their criticisms is that early on, community members had found a blanket that belonged to Sade in a place that police said they had already searched. Her family members also said that so far, most of her remains have been found by community members. Additionally, Sade's family, along with the public, complained that they had seen Maxwell's father, Stephen Anderson, at his son's home in Milwaukee, and someone had taken photos showing him removing items from the property. Police, however, said that they have obtained all evidence that they needed from Maxwell's house, and that the crime scene has been released, so anyone's allowed in at this point. That was until May 3rd, because that's when Maxwell's home sold for $195,000. So, even if there was any evidence, it's no longer there. Maxwell would plead not guilty in court. And the same day that he did, it was announced that the blood investigators had found inside his home had been tested. And strangely, it did not belong to Sade. At this time, they say they don't know who it belongs to, but they don't believe that there are any other victims. So prosecutors are still unsure where her murder and dismemberment occurred. However, they believed it happened sometime between when the pair arrived at Maxwell's home at 9:24 p.m. and when Maxwell left his home at 4:30 a.m., which is a span of more than 7 hours. Sheena Scarborough, Sade's mother, filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Maxwell. The lawsuit claims emotional distress, among other things. It says, Sade Robinson is now deceased with no ability to be properly buried, and her mother, Mrs. Scarborough, and her minor sister are left in an emotional uproar with no idea when the pain would ever cease, as they cannot sleep, are experiencing nightmares, are crying insatiably, are having headaches, cannot eat, and cannot find a sense of comfort or peace as they sit in agony and pain. And many people left pink mementos in honor of Sade. Stuffed animals, balloons, blankets, and more covered the front lawn of Maxwell Anderson's home. On May 10, 2024, the day that Sade Robinson would have turned 20 years old, a public memorial was held for her, and she was called a remarkable young woman who touched many different parts of the community. A nonprofit is also being formed, titled Sade's Voice Foundation, which will aim to support families of missing Black and brown women and raise awareness about their stories. Sade's father, Carlos Robinson, said that he was in disbelief when Sade's mother had called him and gave him the horrible news. He said, I want to know everything, but I don't know if I can handle it. It's devastating. That little girl was my world. She changed my life. She was a beautiful, beautiful soul. Carlos continued, she's out there and I need to find her to be able to help put her to rest properly. He also said he is thankful for everyone that has been searching and has plans to travel to Milwaukee himself to search for his daughter.
Dressed in her older sister's favorite color, young Adriana Reams is doing what Sade Robinson never got the chance to experience. This celebratory walk across the stage at Pfizer Forum on graduation day.
A part of it felt wrong because this is her diploma and she worked so hard to earn it, but I'm glad that I could be here.
Adriana and her family are accepting a posthumous honorary degree in Sade's name at MATC's commencement ceremony. The 19-year-old was studying criminal justice at the college before she was tragically murdered in April. Her mother still coping with the loss.
I am having a multitude of feelings. I'm grateful, overwhelmed, sad.
Does this help you all heal, find closure?
I don't know if we're ever going to get closure. The healing part is it's a long journey.
This crime is so disturbing, with Sade's body parts being found in different locations. I feel so horrible for her family and friends. I can't even imagine how it must feel to hear that your loved one is being found in pieces. And what was Maxwell's motive? Did he go on a date that night with Sade with the intentions of killing her? I guess we'll find out more when this goes to trial, and if I hear any updates, I'll let you know. And remember, stay safe, and never go to someone's house whom you just met alone. Thank you to all the patrons of A Wicked World. Now, there's even more of A Wicked World on Patreon. So check it out at patreon.com/awickedworld or use the Patreon app. You'll have access to exclusive videos each month and more. Any support truly helps to make sure the victims never get forgotten and to highlight the shortcomings of society associated with each case. Do you have a suggestion for a case you'd like to see me cover? If so, send me an email at awickedworldtruecrime@gmail.com.